A massive double-barrel blow to Casey Anthony's defense tonight. Attorney Jose Valez is now facing his own troubles. A former client currently behind bars is claiming that Jose Valez was defective in defending him. Milton Diaz is serving a 15-year sentence for the death of a toddler. He blames the judge, prosecutors, and particularly his former attorney, Jose Valez. Diaz says it was a botched defense strategy that led to his false conviction. This as Valez prepares for what could be explosive question and answer confrontations this week. Tomorrow, he is set to depose Jim Hoover. Remember him from last week? That's the controversial former volunteer security guard for the Anthony family. He's also set to take on 2 jail guards. They could reveal more about Casey's behavior that key day that little Caylee's remains were found. Will accusations of lousy lawyering throw Valez off his game? Should Casey Anthony be worried about her own defense? Let's go back to the experts. We're delighted to have with us tonight Thomas Luca, the attorney representing Casey's brother, Lee Anthony. Lots of questions for him. And still here, Brenda Wade, clinical psychologist, plus Stacey Honowitz, Florida prosecutor. Stacey, what do you make of this claim by this convict that Valez failed to disclose information to prosecutors, which then prevented Valez from showing jurors a video that explained how the child's skull fracture could have theoretically been an accident? Quote, Valez wanted to surprise the prosecution, and the surprise blew up in the defendant's face.
Well, Jane, this is very interesting. It's a motion for ineffective assistance of counsel. That's basically what he's trying to say. And these pop up quite often with people that get convicted of the crime. And certainly prosecutors at this point kind of come in and jump to the defense of the defense attorney because they don't want the conviction to be thrown out. But certainly Valez at this point has to be embarrassed because most of these times these claims are made and the only people that know are the lawyer, the prosecutor, the defendant, and then the judge or the appellate court that looks it over. And in this case, now the whole world is getting a view that this person thought that Jose Valez did him wrong. But the interesting thing is that the viewers have to know is it's my understanding that this defendant has accused the prosecutor, the judge, of everybody of being unfair to him. It's like a bitter pill.
Yeah.
So,
well, Valez, by the way, is not
worried?
embarrassed.
No.
He says through his spokesperson that this is a common post-conviction strategy, and he's not going to let his ego get in the way, and he hopes that the strategy works out for this guy. So there you have that. Now, another big issue, private investigator Jim Hoover deposed by lawyers for Zenaida Gonzalez just last week. We talked about it all last week. Hoover speculated about who Dominic Casey, another private eye working for the Anthony family, was talking to on the phone in that now infamous video of Dominic searching the area where Caylee's remains were discovered a month later.
Cindy?
I don't think he was talking to Cindy, no.
Who?
I don't think he was talking to Cindy. I don't think he was talking to George.
Who do you think he was talking to?
I think he might, possibly Lee.
Lee Anthony?
Possibly, low probability, possibly.
Thomas Luca, you represent Lee Anthony, Casey's brother. After that statement came out last week, you seemed angry and threatened possible legal action. Why, and what steps are you planning to take?
Well, first of all, Gene, these allegations by Mr. Hoover have to be substantiated through phone records or some other objective way, and they're not being that. Even that, Mr. Hoover does say it's a low probability that he was talking to Mr. Anthony. I've spoken to Mr. Anthony. Mr. Anthony has steadfastly denied that he ever spoke to Mr. Hoover about that particular incident or on that particular day. But we hope that the objective phone records are going to bear that out and will show that Mr. Hoover was, at the very least, gravely mistaken.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious thing because obviously the implications are that whoever that gentleman, Dominic Casey, is talking to on the phone knew something, knew, Stacey Honowitz, where the little girl's body was buried.
That's right, Jane. We discussed it last week. What are the implications when people hear this or they see it replayed over and over again? Why are they at the exact spot where this body was found later? And certainly it does give the impression that somebody in that Anthony camp sent them over there. So certainly we're going to hear tomorrow some more details, and the attorney's right. Basically, the phone records are going to bear out or substantiate what we're trying to find out.
Well, okay, he's got a lot of questions, I'm sure Jose Valez does, for this Jim Hoover, as we've been talking about. Jose Valez plans to depose the Anthony's former volunteer security guard, Jim Hoover, this week tomorrow, I believe. But he may not be very happy about what Hoover has to say about a Zanny the Nanny abduction. Listen to this.
The whole time that you were with the Anthony family, you never heard one of them mention the babysitter?
Yes, sir.
You never heard them mention Zenaida Gonzalez?
Yes, sir.
Did that seem... I'm probably asking a question I know the answer to because it's so obvious. Did that seem strange to you that the person who Casey said had taken the baby, that name never came up?
Did it seem strange to me for the hours I was out there and the times I was out there? No.
Brenda Wade, the Anthonys still publicly claim a Zenaida Gonzalez stole the child. They say it's a different Zenaida than the woman who's suing Casey. But the point here is, wouldn't the Anthonys be talking about this alleged abductor more if they really believe the story that a Zanny the Nanny took the child?
Of course. I would think so. I would absolutely think so, Jane, simply because if it's the case, you're going to do everything you can to find that person. So why wouldn't they be talking about that person? I don't think this sounds like something where there's veracity. It doesn't sound like truth to me. And it looks like another attempt on the part of the family to rally behind Casey. I don't blame them. She's their daughter. They love her. But at the same time, it doesn't hold water.
All right, now...
Jane, can I just say...
Sure.
Can I say one thing? I think it's interesting to note that if you look at the very early tapes, the videotapes of George and Cindy Anthony, when the case first came to light, never one time did you ever hear them say in any interview, even as they were walking down the street, we need to find this nanny, we need to find her, this woman, this... The name was never brought up, and I think that's very telling.
Yeah. And now it seems like the defense is stuck with the Zanny the Nanny defense, which may be a big problem for them. Let's talk about somebody else that Baez plans to depose this week, Amy Huizenga. Now, this is a former friend of Casey's who has said incredibly damaging things. She said that Casey's a liar, stole checks to go on a shopping spree at Target to buy push-up bras and beer, that Casey partied hard the whole month. Little Caylee was first missing before she was reported missing, and that even before that, Casey brought Caylee to booze-drenched parties. Thomas Luca, as an attorney for Lee Anthony and by extension being on the family side, this has got to be very difficult for them day in and day out to hear these things about Casey.
It certainly is. And just going back a little bit, the whole Zanny the Nanny or Zenaida Gonzalez, all of this has come from Casey Anthony herself. So everything has to be taken with a grain of salt and has to be verified through some third party because there have been so many inconsistencies by Miss Anthony herself.
Yeah.
And all these have to be explained.
All right, Stacey, what do you think is going to happen with Amy Huizenga? I mean, how is Baez going to undo that damage?
Well, I think what he's going to try to do is say that since Casey stole from her, then obviously she's got a grudge against her, so she's going to say anything. Now, that doesn't work. I mean, it can be a double-edged sword, because do you want the jury to hear that not only did she murder her child, which is they're trying to prove, but that she's also a thief? That's a prior bad act that the defense would want to try to keep out. So now if you go and you use the theory of you don't like her because she stole from you, now you have the jury hearing that she's a thief. So that can really play out either way, seriously.
And the last thing, Brenda Wade, he's also going to depose Kia Marie Cruz, who told the National Enquirer that as soon as she heard that Caylee's remains were found double wrap of the heart, she was shocked because she claims she and Casey used to bury their pets in the same manner at the same location. Is that damaging? How damaging is that?
Yes, I think it's so disturbing, Jane. It's hard for me to even hear it. But yeah, I think that says, again, all the arrows seem to be pointing to Casey Anthony.
Although, when you sell your story or you give your story to the National Enquirer, we don't know if she stole it, that could hurt her credibility. Thanks to my fantastic panel in other news.